My name is Paul. I'm also called Knickknack, and I'm the brains behind Knickknack's Old Peculiar, the world's most boring blog, Knickknack's Daily Teaser, the world's most repetitive quiz. At least, hopefully, it's not repetitive. Either way, it's a quiz I do, and I post it both to my blog and here to my YouTube channel at Mr. Cuddy 2977. Please, if you enjoy what you see, feel free to subscribe, like, and if you're feeling really kind, you can also tip in my tip jar. That'll be floating around in the corner alongside a lot of other things as well. I'll try and leave it in the comment section underneath as well. Like I say, I do quizzes, I do blogs, and I occasionally review TV shows. I'm going through an old Doctor Who classic series called The Savages. I also talk about movies I've watched. And just recently, I've watched quite a few, and I'll try and leave links to the written version underneath this video as well, so you can see what you see. But I do movie reviews, and occasionally I feel like watching historical movies, some things that are felt to be important. I've seen the original Nosferatu over the years, De Gollum, another German film, and the extremely German The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, amongst others. I've seen a couple of recent ones too. Close Encounters of the Third Kind springs to mind, as does Blade Runner. And obviously, I'm using the term recent there very loosely. But you get my point. I try and see films that are considered important to see. I've also tried to see things that are
20 hours.
Thank you, Killer. I also try and see things that are seen as historically significant, which is why, while I was cooking dinner last night, I was actually burning sausages. I was writing this intro back then, and given the fuss about the live-action remake, and given I first saw the original as a child, I decided to watch the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, even if it's not my usual thing. Here's what I thought. Originally released in December of 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs opens with the film's credits, unusually for now, telling us the film is produced by Disney, distributed by RKO, and shot in glorious Technicolor, and then shifts to show us a storybook in white leather embossed with gold lettering. A book that tells of a beautiful princess called Snow White, whose jealous stepmother, the Queen, forces her to work as a scullery maid, until one day, when her magic mirror tells the Queen that Snow White is destined to become the fairest in the land, the Queen decides to act by ordering her favourite huntsman to take Snow White into the woods and to come back with the young girl's heart in a box. Deep in the woods and out of the Queen's sight, the dark huntsman has a crisis of conscience, telling Snow White to run as far as she can and to keep running until she's well away from the Queen and the palace, and tells her to head for a place of safety, something the princess does, or at least tries to do, only collapsing miles from anywhere. That is where her troubles really start. Now, you're going to ask, aren't you? Paul, what did you think of Disney's first feature film, of the film that set the bar for every animated movie that followed, of a film that helped turn the rather small Disney studio of the time into the media giant it is today? It's a story that started life as a fairy tale. The film, that is. And it's one that you wouldn't think would appeal to a bloke in his 50s, and normally you'd be right. Except every so often I feel I should watch the occasional keynote movie. I've already mentioned The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and the original Nosferatu, both of which, as it turns out, Walt Disney himself told his animators, or the animators making Snow White, to go and see. He felt the scariest scenes in them would be suitable inspiration for the movie, and I don't think he's necessarily was wrong. 2001: A Space Odyssey and the original Solaris are others I've seen. Those were or are supposed to be the best science fiction films ever made. There's more films or more films I think I should see. I keep thinking that The Birth of a Nation could make for interesting viewing. It is supposed to have introduced several now common techniques, fade outs, close ups, cross cutting, what have you, but also lionized and turned into heroes or made heroes of the Ku Klux Klan. And even though it and Disney's The Song of the South are both readily available on Amazon, I'm still mulling those over. They have reputations for racism I don't necessarily want being applied to me. Either way, my point is simply this, that given the release of the recent remake, Snow White...
It's 21 hours.
Thank you, Killer. And given the fact that Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was Disney's first feature film, it's one of those keynote films. Watching it seemed like a good idea. What I made of it... Just as a brief thought or set of thoughts here, I am very aware that the usual accepted plural of the word dwarf is dwarfs. D-W-A-R-F-S. Dwarfs. But I, like a lot of people, I grew up reading Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, so I am very aware the Professor, and he was a languages professor after all, preferred the spelling of the plural form as dwarves, D-W-A-R-V-E-S. It mirrored the plural form of wolf and elf and shelf and self, which become wolves and elves and shelves and selves, and there's plenty of other examples as well. Whichever version of dwarfs or dwarves is down to you, but I'm sticking to dwarfs in the title of the film, but I prefer the version spelt with a W. I prefer dwarves. Which sounds odd now I say it out loud, but there you go. At any rate, and as another point, we see vultures in a couple of points in the film, the traditional harbingers of death in many cultures. The last time we see them in the film, we see them circling overhead over the Queen's dead body after the Queen has fallen to her death. We don't see her body, we just see her fall off the cliff. And we see those vultures circling overhead. And it's quite chilling in what ostensibly is a kid's film. And I'm no expert, and I don't know if that touch was seen in other Disney films, but given the animators decided to not show us the Queen's body, yes, there's gruesome, scary bits in a kid's film, and yes, this is a kid's film, but they use this slightly chilling point, or what I thought of as a chilling scene, to show us what's happened exactly to the Queen. She's a corpse. They're getting ready to stoop. And as a third and final loose point, I noticed the celebrations at the end of the film. They're marking Snow White's survival in her glass coffin. And in amongst the woodland animals that are looking on were a female deer and a child and a couple of rabbits. And I couldn't help but wonder if those creature designs were reused later for Bambi, or indeed influenced the character designs in Bambi. We will probably never know. With all of that out of the way, what did I think of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? I think whatever you can say about it probably already has been, but I think when it comes down to it, I've seen a very good film. Granted, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is shy of 90 years old, and granted, there's a few questions we can ask. How realistic are those fluffy woodland creatures? Can rabbits really, really wash dishes with their tails? Is a young woman living on her own with 7 men in a cottage in a deep dark forest actually safe? I've heard jokes, let's put it that way. But either way, we're asking those questions about, let's face it, a fairy tale. On other fronts, Snow White singing is to my modern ears a little dated. There's a bit too much vibrato for my taste, a bit too much only in the soprano voice. The comedy routines are slapstick rather than sophisticated. There's only so many times that tortoise can go slowly up the stairs and then fall down rapidly down the stairs. Do princesses these days really expect to be rescued by a handsome prince that's been following them around for the past hour and a half? We could quite potentially take the pig quite seriously. But with all of that said, what I saw last night was a vivid Grimm Brothers fairy tale brought to life with a sympathetic central character, comedy that's dated but that still works, and a soundtrack with at least one song you will want to sing along to. The Hi-Ho song is a classic. Other things I note, the transformation of the Queen into a evil witch form and the making of the poison apple that she poisons Snow White with. They're as unnerving now as when I saw them when I must have been about 3 or 4 as a child. The dwarves themselves, I am willing to bet that those of us who've watched this original version will have a favourite dwarf. Mine was Grumpy. What was yours? Yes, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is a very old film, and much has changed in the 3 or 4 generations since this film first aired. A woman wouldn't be cleaning house for men these days as Snow White does for the dwarves, or at least you'd get a good argument off of her. But the film I saw last night was utterly enchanting, as enchanting last night as I'm willing to bet audiences found it back in the 1930s. I can only tell you, go check out this original. Even if you prefer to see the live action, go see this original. Right, with all of that said, done, dusted, swept under the carpet, and then possibly jumped on, I am going to leave you to hunt up a copy of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs for yourself. It's available in a few places, and I know that for a fact because I've gone and looked for them. And all I can do now at this end of the video is to say thank you for keeping watching. Thank you in advance for subscribing, and if you want to see more of my stuff, subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll get notified when I release a new review or a daily teaser quiz or anything else that goes on to my channel. Thank you for watching. Have a very good day, and be seeing you.